Welcome to the Rad Chad Show. Today we have got a review of Escape Room, the board game. This will be a completely spoiler-free review, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Escape room games seem to be all the buzz as of late, and the Escape Room board game was one of the first to really hit the ground running and be a huge smash success. You could find this game in a lot of stores, including Walmart, which really to me lets me know that, hey, this is something serious that will progress moving forward, and I'm head over heels right now as far as escape games are concerned. I am hot off the heels of playing the 3 Unlock games, which were my first foray into the board game escape room games. I've done some in real life before, and my second foray was the Escape Room board game. Now, this one in specific has got 4 separate scenarios, and they have got increasing levels of difficulty, which the game does recommend you do in order. You start with a mission called Prison Break, then you move into another mission called Virus, then you go into Nuclear Countdown, and last but not least, they have a Aztec mission. And the general concept of the game is that you have to escape the quote-unquote room within 60 minutes. They provide you this box, which you'll click the start button to start the 60-minute countdown timer. And what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to take these keys, and there are 3 parts to each mission. In part 1, you open up an envelope, you try to solve some puzzles, and you're trying to figure out which combination of 4 keys can you insert in this box to solve the code. And once you've solved the code for part 1, you go to part 2. Once you solve that code, you go to part 3. And if you solve all 3 codes within the allotted 60 minutes, you win the game. I think that this box, which not only acts as a timer, it also acts as the key, inserter. It's also got some codes that you will use to decipher and to crack various missions, which that's all included in the rules. I think that this was actually a small missed opportunity. While it's nice to have physical components on the board sometimes, again, I'm coming hot off the heels of Unlock, which had really great app integration. And while the escape room game does have an app that can play sound effects in the background, it can't act as your timer. It can't act as any of these code breaking things, which we often found were kind of difficult to read. So we had sort of created our own by just writing it larger on a piece of paper, which helped us to play the game a little bit easier. So I just think that was a small missed opportunity. But outside of that, this game really had fairly good components. So again, you get 4 missions all in one box. This box is going to run somewhere between $30 and $40, depending on if you buy it in store or online at a discount. And the quality of the puzzles, which everything about an escape room, the enjoyment 100% relies on the quality of the puzzles, was for the most part good to very good in all of these scenarios. So we'll do a quick run through of each one. The first one was Prison Break. This is the introductory mission. Basically, you're thrown into a prison for, some sort of crime that you didn't actually commit. The previous inmate was a seemingly mad mathematician who's got all sorts of calculations written across the walls and such, and you're going to use his information to try to escape the prison. I thought that this had a great theme that they really could have ran with. The mathematical side of it was a little bit heavy. Now, it's not overly difficult, but there was a fair amount of it. And so for my personal taste, while it was still a good to possibly even very good mission, it was just a click too math heavy. Now, when you get to the second part of each one of these missions, you'll typically unfold a fairly large piece of paper, which acts as, I don't want to call it a map, but a pictorial representation of the room that you're in. So in this case, it was your prison cell. And I think that they did a very good job with not only immersing you within the room that you're actually in by using that map and having to find hidden clues throughout the map and other things like that. I mean, you really do have to look very closely to figure some things out. But also when you open up some of these packs, you'll have this is just a made up example. You might have a letter and that letter was torn. And so there'll actually be a perforation on the sheet of paper where you can punch out the torn letter and then you have a replication of a letter that's actually been torn. And that's really cool. And it does that for each one of these missions. So anyways, back to Prison Break. This one was on the easier side. I think we beat it with somewhere between 10, 11, 12 minutes left to go. And both my wife and I thoroughly enjoyed it. We'd probably give it a 7, maybe an 8 out of 10. We moved into Virus, which was a 2 out of 5 difficulty, the exact same as Prison Break. And this is where things really started to hit home for me. I thought that all of the puzzles were very well done. The game has a hint system where once you hit certain thresholds of time, once you get to 55 minutes or 45 minutes or 30 minutes, for example, you can flip up and reveal one of the 8 hints that it'll give you. And this was a great way to help give you a boost if you actually needed it. But what we found in Virus was that we were doing all the work ourselves, actually. And so a lot of those hints we had already passed and we were moving on to other puzzles. And that was sort of like a self-fulfilling thing in the sense that, hey, we're actually ahead of the curve right now and we're doing good. And I think we finished that one with like 13 or 14 minutes left to go. And I thought the puzzles were exceptional in that one. So really enjoyed Virus. The next one was the Nuclear Countdown, and this was a 3 out of 5 difficulty. I think the Nuclear Countdown had probably the best integration between the theme and the mechanics of the puzzles, other than maybe the Aztec one, which we'll talk about in just a second. There was one specific puzzle in the Aztec one that I thought really nailed the theme very well. But the overall mission of the Nuclear Countdown, I thought, had a very good theme. Essentially, there's a guy who has got a bomb, and you need to figure out where the bomb is. You got to defuse the bomb, and all this stuff is in the back of part 1, which you read before you even open up any of the components. It's just the general synopsis, and each story has one of these synopses, and it really places you in the setting and the mood of what you're about to experience. So I thought that was good as well, although they're a little bit long. They're just like some novels almost on the back of these parts. And the Nuclear Countdown had some clever puzzles. There were times where I felt this game would give you maybe too much information. And that was sort of good and bad because it could lead you astray down a path that you weren't necessarily supposed to go on. But in the same breath, if you didn't have those multiple avenues, it would probably be too obvious which way you actually needed to go. So I'm a little up in the air as to whether or not that was good, and that was probably more prevalent in Nuclear Countdown than it was in the prior 2 scenarios. But there was one specific puzzle in Nuclear Countdown that I just thought was ingenious. Now, we were totally stumped on it, and I don't think we would have ever figured it out had we not have received a hint from the game. But once we did receive that hint, boy, it was a really out-of-the-box, clever idea that I gotta give them some credit for because it gave me an appreciation for these designers, even more so than the previous 2 missions, which I thought were very, very good. And so I really enjoyed Nuclear Countdown, and probably the biggest reason, even though that's already a very good reason for liking the game, is just how clever that puzzle was the last puzzle in specific I thought was challenging, but it was fairly clear what you needed to do. You just needed to do it and do it right. And when everybody's kind of brains are interconnecting and you're figuring this all out at the same time, that one moment capstoned this whole game for us. So that Nuclear Countdown mission and the Virus mission, those are definitely the 2 that were our favorites. Again, I'd give those maybe, 8, possibly even a 9 out of 10. I mean, they were really, really good. And then we got to the Aztec mission, which had a really good theme. I think that's the one where the artwork probably hit home the most in immersing you into that specific theme. But this was a 4 out of 5 difficulty. We played this one with 4 players, whereas we played Prison Break with 2 and Virus and Nuclear Countdown with 3. We played Aztec with 4, which you would think having more eyes on it would actually be easier. And I do think it is easier with more eyes. But if you get too many people, if you got 5 players, you might be kind of stepping on each other's toes sometimes because you can only pick up so many of the components. If I grab a component, nobody else can look at that component. So sometimes having, I think 5 might be too many. So 3 or 4 is a sweet spot. But anyways, the Aztec mission, we had 4, and boy, was it a doozy. I mean, we really were challenged from the get-go. I mean, the first puzzle we needed hints on, the second puzzle we needed hints on, the third puzzle we barely scraped by, and it was more of an educated guess than it was us actually figuring it out in full after having looked through the walkthrough just to see how we were supposed to figure it out. We ended up escaping all 4 of them, including the Aztec one, but the Aztec one we escaped with a minute left to spare. And so basically, if we didn't get that code right then and there. You're docked a minute, and we would have just automatically lost. So the Aztec mission, I'm going to say, was a click too challenging, but I think there was a good sense of escalation from a 2 difficulty to another 2 to a 3 to finally a 4. And everybody's going to have a different experience. So somebody might find the Aztec missions tremendously easy, where another person might find the nuclear missions to be more difficult. I found nuclear fairly easy considering the difficulty level, and I found the Aztec much harder. So it's all going to kind of get back to what your experience is, what you're good at, what you're not good at. But in general, I think the box overall is a great value at $30 to $40, depending on how many people you play with. Let's say you play with 4 players for each game. You're talking somewhere between $8 to $10 per scenario, which is somewhere between, I don't know, $2, maybe $3 per person. And I think the quality of these missions is exceptional. I think the components are very good. I think just in general, this is a very good, solid entry into escape room board games that I highly recommend. So overall, I'm going to give the game an 8 out of 10, and I think this is one you should check out. Thanks.
Thank you for watching The Rad Chad Show. Until next time.